science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, government, or national security. Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And welcome to the broadcast. Glad you are with us on this evening, July 8th, 2025. July 8th, 2025. What a lineup tonight. Roger Stone first up tonight. Roger Stone. Here is the headline. There was the top headline earlier today at Daily Mail. Elon Musk names top Trump ally in the Epstein files as MAGA civil war spirals. Oh boy. Okay, who's being named? And Roger Stone is quoted in the article. I'll give you a little hint. Here we go. Trump advisor Steve Bannon is implicated in the Jeffrey Epstein files, according to Elon. According to Daily Mail, I should say. And then Roger Stone comments on this. I'm going to have Roger Stone on about all of this. Roger's going to join us here tonight. We're also going to be joined by Leo Holman. Leo and I are going to talk about, in a couple articles Leo's got out. One of them is, by the way, Roger, we're going to talk about why the Epstein files aren't coming out, what needs to happen here. And then Leo is going to respond to President Trump today saying to a reporter, why are you asking about this guy Epstein, this creep? This is old news. We need to concentrate on the new stuff, the great stuff. We'll have Leo respond to that, as well as Leo's going to respond to a Trump administration that's continuing from the Biden administration, as reported on the Worldview Report tonight, prosecuting one of the few doctors who actually honored his Hippocratic oath when it came to the COVID bio shot. NATO is being humiliated by Russia, and it has no one to blame but itself. And Trump's big, beautiful bill just passed by Senate will massively expand the digital biometric surveillance state for years to come. All of that with Leo Holman. We're also going to be joined by Annie Cyrus for a quick update. She was on with me for an hour today on radio/television. But I want her to give you a clip note version and then bring in at the same time Dave Gobbets, who went undercover in more than 425 mosques in America, former federal agent. Let's talk about what Sarah Adams and many others are warning about, and that is an imminent threat in America, they're saying, by groups like Al-Qaeda, the bin Laden boys, some of bin Laden's sons, I guess. And that yet at the same time, we got these kind of things going on. U.S. ending terrorist designation for Syrian rebel group, whose leader now runs Syria. We've got other headlines tonight that are of concern as well, related to, not going to scan shoes anymore at the airport. Why is this a problem? There's the talk of invisible bombs, and why we better be scanning shoes and everything else. Dave Gobbets actually is not going to give anything that's not public, but he's going to give one example tonight of how easy it is to get things on on a commercial airline plane that shouldn't be there. Then we're going to be joined by Dr. Lana. Let's talk about this. The great cholesterol scam and the dangers of statins. Talk about that. Let's also talk about testing your blood. What is it, if you go to the doctor, that they're not testing for that they should be? Particularly if you get a terminal diagnosis. So let's talk a little bit about that. And then Congressman Glenn Grothman is going to join us. Talk about really how the big, beautiful bill just stopped us from getting the largest tax increase in American history. So we'll talk to Congressman Glenn Grothman about that. And I want to ask him about what he thinks about what's going on with the IRS. Just making it up, saying, hey, we want to take nearly $50,000 from your organization, Brannon, even though we abated the so-called penalty because you paid by a check versus online when their system was down. Well, Congressman Glenn Grothman's on a committee, Financial Oversight Committee, that actually oversees the IRS. So I shared this story with him. You want to hear what he has to say about it as well. Big, big show tonight. Now, before we get there, I need you to go right now to worldviewtube.com. Well, first of all, I need you to tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, Truth Social, whatever you do. How you doing tonight, Dolly? Your tail is hitting something behind you. You're playing the drums. You're a good drummer. You're a good drummer. Are you having a good day? Are you a good girl? I saw you brought me a toy. What did you bring me? Where's your toy? How is it you always come up here when I'm on the air? When I'm just off the air, sitting here working, studying, you don't come up here. But when I'm on the air, how is it you know? How do you know? I guess it's the way I'm talking probably, right? You can tell. You love the attention, don't you? And you get cards in the mail. You get gifts in the mail. You're a good studio dog, aren't you? Yes, you're a good studio dog. You're a very good studio dog. You do not like fireworks, though, do you? She hates fireworks. All my labs love fireworks because they were trained hunting dogs. She hates them. Yeah. You're a good girl. All right, go play. Now, where was I? Well, you're back on this side. What are we doing tonight? Is there something of interest up here? There's no food. There's no food up here. Sorry. Where were we, Dolly? You distracted me. Here we were. I need your support. We're shoving it all out for free, folks. And boy, do we need your support now. The IRS took $50,000 out of our bank account, almost 49,000 something. Read about it at worldviewtube.com/IRS. You don't know what I'm talking about. worldviewtube.com/IRS. So we got to put that money back. By the way, we're going to do a free Worldview Weekend rally on Saturday night, the first weekend of November in Des Moines, Iowa, and then on Sunday night in Northern Illinois. Free Worldview Weekend rallies. We're going to go back out and do a few like we did in Milwaukee in April. Well, guess what? Now the IRS stole $50,000 from us. We can't go do those ministry projects. Yeah. But maybe that's what the IRS wants, some of the radicals in the IRS. They want to hurt a conservative Christian organization like this so we can't go out and do Christian events. But if that was their goal, mission accomplished, because we actually had a contract we're going to get for the hotel in Des Moines. That's not happening now, nor Northern Illinois. So we do need your support now. We got to put that money back in our account and get ready to pay more payroll taxes. And the money was set aside for those kind of things. So we need your support, plus our normal bills, our bandwidth bill, streaming out a free program, all of these great products. Worldview Healthcare, we can get antibiotics, be your own, basically urgent care. We've got, of course, Worldview Water, where you can filter out all the garbage that's in the water. This is the water I drink. This is the water that I shower. I shower with clean water with all these things have been filtered out because I have one on my shower. So I have one in my kitchen. It's the water I drink. Melissa makes coffee with. It's the water we use to mix with my Gatatana. It's the water we give our fur babies. And then we have a filter we shower with to get all this garbage out of the water, which I think actually helps my hair growth, to be honest with you. We have, of course, Melissa Howse, BG, that's Bella Grace, Gatatana, Squish for Life, the Numi, Worldview Talk, you get a satellite phone, solar generator, and much more. All of it at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Don't forget about the foundation. That's very important. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. You'll find all of our sponsors, including our vault, where we archive about 35 years of radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, documentaries, and more. So please, we need your support. All right. Thank you for doing that. All right. Today, I pre-recorded an interview with Roger Stone because Roger has a show at night that competes with mine, but that's all right. We're friends. And I wanted to get with him on this headline over at the Daily Mail today. Elon Musk names top Trump ally in the Epstein files as MAGA Civil War spirals. Roger Stone was referenced in here, and I wanted to get a response from him. So I pre-recorded it since Roger has to go on the air tonight. So watch this pre-record with Roger Stone. Join me now is Roger Stone of StoneZone.com. StoneZone.com. Here's the headline today. At one point, it was the top headline story at Daily Mail. Elon Musk names top Trump ally in the Epstein files as MAGA Civil War spirals. Billionaire techie turned political provocateur Elon Musk has launched another salvo at MAGA World by claiming that former Trump advisor Steve Bannon is implicated in the Jeffrey Epstein files. The, what's that word? Merkel businessman who has recently fallen out of Trump orbit after lambasting his big, beautiful bill emerged with a fresh attack against the Republicans' first-term advisor and campaign director. Quote, Bannon is in the Epstein files, end quote. Musk posted Tuesday on X, says Daily Mail. The Tesla CEO is responding to a social media post from another former Trump advisor, Roger Stone. Quote, why would Bannon meet with Jeffrey Epstein, quote, at his New York home and in Paris after Epstein was convicted of sex crimes in Florida, end quote. Stone wondered on X, quote, why would he coach Epstein for his 60-minutes appearance, end quote. That appears to stem from reports that Bannon allegedly helped the convicted pedophile prepare for a CBS 60-minute interview that never happened. Quote, you're engaging, you're not threatening, you're natural, you're friendly, you don't look at all creepy, you're a sympathetic figure, end quote. Bannon apparently said during a 2019 coaching session with Epstein, according to a journalist, Michael Wolff's book, Too Famous, The Rich, the Powerful, the Wishful, the Notorious, the Damned, end quote. Let's go to Roger Stone himself, because this is all over social media today. Roger, what do you make of this? And what do you say to those who say, wait a minute, you guys are all in the MAGA team. Why is there this rift between Bannon and Stone? I know that's a rhetorical question, because I know, because we've been friends long enough. But the people want to know.
Brannon, I think it's very important that people understand the background here. To my shock and surprise, when I was subjected to a Soviet-style show trial in New York, after federal prosecutors and Robert Mueller indicted me simply because I refused to bear false witness against Donald Trump, and they accused me of lying under oath to Congress about Russian collusion. And we've now, of course, proven that there was no Russian collusion. So how one lies about something that didn't happen, I think it's kind of self-evident that this was a political hit job. But to my shock and surprise, Robert Mueller's chief witness was Steve Bannon. Now, Steve Bannon testified under oath to the House Intelligence Committee at roughly the same time that I did. And when he was asked point blank if he ever discussed Julian Assange, WikiLeaks, or allegedly leaked emails or hacked emails, he said, with Roger Stone, he said, no, never. Follow-up question from Adam Schiff. On no occasion, Bannon repeats, no, never. Then when he's asked the identical question on the stand in my trial in Washington, D.C., he says, yes, Stone brought it up in every phone conversation we had in 2016. I considered Stone our access point with WikiLeaks, which was news to me because none of those conversations ever took place. So this is reported in the New York Post. Jonathan Turley, the very respected George Washington University law professor, examined both transcripts and said there's very clearly a glaring and irreconcilable conflict in what Bannon said before Congress, what he said before the court. But more specifically, I pointed out that after Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of sex crimes in Florida, and I think it's important to note, Donald Trump cut Epstein off prior to his being exposed and convicted of sex crimes in Florida, when Epstein made an indecent advance to an underage girl who worked in the spa at Mar-a-Lago. From that point on, he was barred from all Trump's properties and from Trump's life. But the Clintons continued to associate with him after the Florida conviction, continued to socialize with him, continued to take millions of dollars from him, continued to visit his island, which my good friend Sean Hannity has called Orgy Island. But Steve Bannon also continued to associate with Epstein, visiting Epstein in his home in Manhattan, which, by the way, is the single most expensive single-family piece of real estate in the borough of Manhattan, but also, according to the New York Post, visited him in Paris. We also know that Bannon coached Epstein for an appearance on 60 Minutes, an appearance that was ultimately canceled, and that Bannon shot 15 hours of documentary film with Epstein. So that is what Elon Musk was responding to. I reposted a piece from the Business Insider that restated those unassailable facts. What's the takeaway? Bannon perjured himself at my trial. I don't know why, perhaps to save his own sizable ass. And secondarily, he clearly was associated with Jeffrey Epstein. So what's the difference between Donald Trump and Steve Bannon? Donald Trump never visited Epstein's home in New York, never visited his island, never visited him in Paris.
And so what do you make today? It's kind of gotten Alex Jones weeping. It's gotten other people upset that President Trump today in the cabinet room, when a reporter asked Pam Bondi, Attorney General, about the Epstein files, President Trump said, "Why are we talking about this creepy guy? Are we still doing this? We got much more important things to talk about." He wasn't happy about that. Roseanne Barr, many others are not happy on social media tonight, saying, read the room, we do care, we don't want to move on, we want information. How does Roger Stone respond to that today?
Well, Brannon, first of all, I think it's important to note that I think I am the second major author in the United States to substantially expose Epstein. In my book, The Clintons' War on Women, published in 2015, the longest chapter in the book by far is chapter, I think it's 7, entitled Orgy Island. And you can get the book by going to EpsteinTruthBook.com, EpsteinTruthBook.com. And a number of things are established in the book. Among them, yes, I had the FAA manifest. Yes, I know who partied on Epstein's island. Let's go through some of the names. Former U.S. Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell of Maine, a Democrat. Former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, a Democrat. Former President Bill Clinton, a Democrat. The scientist Stephen Hawking, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is.
The Israeli former Prime Minister Ehud Barak. Now, I don't think they went to the island for the weather. And this is all laid out in my book. I point out to you that a federal grand jury in July, I believe, of last year, indicted Epstein on 2 counts. One was child sex trafficking. The other one was conspiring to engage in child sex trafficking. But the grand jury testimony under which he was indicted is sealed. And the search warrant, which was issued by the Southern District of New York for Orgy Island, is also sealed. Why are those documents sealed? By the way, Kash Patel at the FBI has no ability to see those documents or to unseal them. It is not within his authority. So why the Justice Department under Pam Bondi, who I like very much, has not moved to unseal those documents, because clearly the grand jury felt there was enough evidence against Epstein to bring a criminal indictment against him. And then you move to the question of whether he killed himself. Michael Baden, who is the longtime New York City medical examiner, one of the most respected pathologists in the country, examined Epstein's body at the request of his family, and he said his injuries were not consistent with hanging himself. That he had 3 different broken bones in his neck, were not consistent with hanging. And he also pointed out that he, Baden, had done autopsies in over 1,000 hanging cases. We also know that the criminal defense attorney, David Schoen, who represented Donald Trump quite ably in one of the 2 impeachments, had agreed to represent Epstein in his criminal defense trial. They had agreed on a retainer the Thursday before the Saturday that Epstein died. So I ask you, who retains a lawyer on Thursday and kills himself on Saturday? Now, on top of that, we're asked to believe that the video cameras just happened to be malfunctioning, that the 2 guards who were in charge of 24-hour monitoring of Epstein happened to fall asleep, that they happened to move his cellmate out of the cell the day before, that they took him off suicide watch the day before. Sorry, it does not add up. And then lastly, an explanation of all this, because I'm as upset about this as Alex Jones is, and actually I saw him crying on the air. I think he's very sincere, because we all just want the truth here. I would point out to you the history on Epstein, which is important. This all came to the fore when the police chief of Palm Beach got a tip from some parents and launched an undercover investigation into Epstein, ultimately handing the state's attorney in Florida a potential indictment involving 33 underage girls for both sex trafficking and statutory rape. The police chief was shocked when the state's attorney came back with one count of solicitation, which that would be like Logan going into a bar and trying to solicit a prostitute,
which he would never do.
Not that he would ever do.
Right.
The police chief was so upset based on the belief that the state's attorney had either been threatened or he had been compromised in some way, went to the U.S. attorney for South Florida. The U.S. attorney, Alex Acosta, conducted his own investigation, and then surprisingly, he rubber-stamped the state's slap on the wrist, and he sealed the case. Epstein was given 18 months. He only served 15 months, but he is the only person ever convicted of a sex crime in Florida allowed to serve his sentence at the brand new air-conditioned Palm Beach County Jail rather than the state penitentiaries, which in Florida, as you might imagine, are not too nice. When Acosta in 2016 went on to be appointed labor secretary under Donald Trump, in preparation for his confirmation hearings, he was asked, what are you going to say if they ask you about why you gave Epstein a slap on the wrist? He reportedly said, Acosta reportedly replied, I'm going to tell the truth, that the CIA contacted me, told me he was one of theirs, and I was to rubber stamp the case and seal it, which is what I did. So there you have it. I think the deep secret here is that Epstein was functioning as an asset for our own intelligence agencies. At the same time, Brannon, I believe he was probably also essentially a blackmailer for hire, working perhaps for the Israelis, for the Saudis, for a number of others. We also know that there was enormous pressure from the British government through the British royal family because of Prince Andrew's well-known involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, a couple months ago, we read and heard about the suicide of Virginia Jeffrey. She was one of Epstein's victims. She was one of the victims who refused to take a cash settlement and persisted on suing Epstein. I interviewed her for my book, The Clintons' War on Women, which has an enormous amount of this information. Again, you can go to EpsteinTruthBook.com to get a copy. I read her extensive testimony. I read all of her filings in court. I interviewed her extensively. There's no doubt in my mind that she did not commit suicide a couple months ago. She was a loose end. This is a case that I know quite a bit about. I have a high regard for Kash Patel. I don't really know Dan Bongino that well, but based on reputation, I like him. On the other hand, they look very, very uncomfortable to me. And I wonder whether there are international pressures on this administration while the president is trying to make peace in various regions and negotiate complicated tariff agreements with our trading partners that may be a key factor in why the American people are not being told everything about Jeffrey Epstein. But I point out again, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino cannot give us what they do not have. So I believe that the DVDs and the hard drives that were seized by the FBI at the time of Epstein's arrest in New York, in Palm Beach, in New Mexico at his ranch, and on his island, I believe those are long gone. I think they have been destroyed. And they cannot give us what they do not have. What needs to happen now, in all honesty, is that Pam Bondi needs to direct the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York to move to unseal the material involved in the indictment of Epstein, and particularly to unseal the search warrant for Orgy Island.
Well, that last sentence was important. Maybe international pressure on President Trump to not let this all blow in the wind when he's trying to get so many different things done on the international stage. I hope you guys didn't miss what he just said there, because that's a very interesting piece of information. He's on a hard break. He's got to go, folks. But I want you to see right here all of his numbers stonecoldtruth.com. He's got stonezone.com. You can follow him on X at Roger J. Stone Jr. You can get the book on the Clintons' war on women at stonezone.com, stonezone.com. And Steve Bannon is welcome to come on if he wants to refute any of this as well. Right, Roger?
That'd be fine with me.
Yeah. Roger, we always love having you on. You're a team player, and you always make yourself available to us. We really appreciate it. And by the way, wasn't our team fast with all of those things you were bringing up? We didn't know what you were going to say, but we're ready to go, bringing it up left and right, man, on the graphics.
Look, some of my fondest days were when I was with Worldview Tube. I'm glad to be back with you. I'll be honest with you, I declined a number of other interviews tonight, but Brannon, you asked, I'm happy to be here.
Well, you're very kind, and you know you're always welcome back here for TV in the future whenever it opens up the door for you.
In the meantime, people can hear the Stone Zone, my syndicated radio show, every night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time at WABCRadio.com. That's WABCRadio.com. We'll talk about this tonight and a number of other matters. The CIA has now finally admitted that they were handling Lee Harvey Oswald. And there's the House Intelligence Committee chair says that the report put out by the CIA regarding the way the Obama administration fabricated the Russian collusion hoax is a sanitized version, and the truth is much, much worse. We'll cover all of that tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, Roger. StoneZone.com. Thanks, Roger.
Thank you. God bless you.
You too, my friend. Roger Stone checking in there, folks. StoneZone.com. And we're going to be right back after this break.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
All right, joining me now is Annie Cyrus and Dave Gobbets. Guys, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brannon.
All right, Annie was on with me for an hour today on radio. Folks, I hope we're going to play that hour of radio today again at the end of this broadcast. So you're going to want to see that. But I wanted to bring her back on for a Cliff Note version. And then David, because David's gone undercover in over 425 mosques in America, over 125. And a few months ago, this spring, he said that he's now seeing Al-Qaeda show up at some of these mosques. I want to remind you guys, if you didn't see or if you saw the radio show, TV show this afternoon, I'll remind you. Otherwise, take a look at this. Sarah Adams, former CIA, is saying, wait, Al-Qaeda has an operational airline plot against a dozen U.S. airliners, and our federal air marshals are on the border. She goes on to talk about how they are working on and have invisible bombs, okay? Annie, because I know you need to go sooner than David needs to go, I want you to pick it up here. Give our audience your thoughts on these warnings by Sarah Adams and others about Al-Qaeda before we get David's response, please.
Well, we have been talking about an upcoming attack. We don't know when, but that's just a matter of time because it's the routine. However, I think the reason recently we'll see a lot of experts like Sarah Adams talking about Al-Qaeda possibly being behind the plot and the attack is because of the way that the current administration has handled parts of Al-Qaeda related businesses, such as shaking hands with the leader of Syria, such as lifting sanctions on Syria. Why does that matter? What does that have to do with Al-Qaeda? The current leader of Syria, who supposedly toppled Assad, is the leader of the Syrian Al-Qaeda chapter. As of right now, he has two positions: leader of Syria, leader of the Syrian Al-Qaeda group. So with that being said, with the recent move yesterday, also United States of America removing the Syrian Al-Qaeda group name from the foreign terrorist list of America has just added fuel to the possibility of, is this where we're going? Is this all being set up for Al-Qaeda? To my knowledge, is specifically the DHS or Syrian Al-Qaeda group to make their move, to carry their attack. That's my best educated guess of why Al-Qaeda's name is being dropped way more than usual in last couple of years.
Is that because do you believe, Annie, that the deep state is preparing the way to allow this attack to happen? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying deep state is doing it. I'm saying the red-green axis is doing it.
Okay.
It could be partially deep state, partially current administration, partially CARE involvement, partially Yasser Qadi. It's the red-green axis.
But if you have the U.S. ending the terrorist designation for the Syrian rebel group, and you're now not going to screen people's shoes, where you could have like the shoe bomber, which is a real thing, and you're, according to different air marshal groups, particularly one that's complaining openly on social media that, hey, Secretary Noem, you've got air marshals down on the border checking for head lice and walking people to the bathroom when they should be on our planes. It seems as though something is going on in the government that's lowering our response to this increasing threat. It's almost, I'm not saying the Trump administration, but I'm saying it's almost like somebody in the intelligence arena or somebody in the deep state, whoever that is. It's like they're opening the window here. Am I wrong?
Well, I would say, no, you're not wrong at all. But I would go there and say the signature on the revoking this terrorist group from the foreign terrorist list is Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is not deep state. Marco Rubio is not some intelligent officer in CIA. Marco Rubio is in Trump administration.
Is he being led down the road, though? Is someone doing this to him?
I don't know. But if he's doing it knowingly or somebody's setting him up,
yes.
Either way, he signed it.
Yes, that's my concern. Is he being set up?
Well, but could be. Very well could be. However, again, we're talking possibly American lives at a stake. If he signed it, unless they held a gun to his head, even with that, I don't know what he preferred over possibly thousands. Remember, 3,000 people died on September 11th. Thousands of lives sacrificed for what? One his? Because I know if I'm ever in that position, I don't care. Put a gun on hey, pull the trigger. I'm not signing anything to lower the safety of my citizens. So I'm sorry, but my point is, it doesn't matter how he signed it. The point is he signed it. And to me, as an American citizen, Trump administration, good guy, signed this thing yesterday.
Yeah, signed a bad thing. Whatever comes, I will personally hold him accountable as much as I will hold the Trump administration and Islam accountable for whatever comes next. So, well, I know you only got a few more minutes left with us, Annie. Let's get David in here. I want you to hear his response. David, what do you think of what we're talking about? And then you were warning us on this program a few months ago that you are starting to see an increase in Al-Qaeda presence in the mosques in America as you've gone on undercover in about 425 of them thus far. Speak to all this, please.
Yeah, thank you, Brannon. I've mentioned many times since I came back from Iraq in 2003 that Al-Qaeda is already in America. And although Sarah Adams had said it was about 1,000 plus, I'd estimate there are probably 10,000 plus that have been here since the 1980s, late 80s, 90s, 2000s. They are inside America. The number one threat to America, in my professional opinion, is Islamic-based terrorism from the inside, not necessarily from overseas, which it is, but I think it's more of a threat from the inside because, as Imam Siraj Wahaj out of Brooklyn, New York once said, he said, the Muslim people are the safest in America. Why? Because they can't bomb us in Los Angeles, Brooklyn, Dallas, Texas, as they can in Syria or Afghanistan, because they can accomplish their mission inside America with less scrutiny.
So how concerned are you that we might see a terrorist attack this year? Because Sarah Adams seems like it's kind of imminent. And he said at the end of 2024 on this broadcast that we would see a major terrorist attack in the U.S. in 2025. Are you seeing signs that have you concerned for 2025?
Yeah, I've seen signs for the last 2 decades that a threat is imminent in the United States any day, any time, because people have to keep in mind the Islamic terror groups are very, very patient. They don't mind if they wait 1 day or if they wait 50 years. When they are ready, and that means when they are ready to attack, they will attack. As long as they feel that they're winning in America, they will not attack. But again, that could change overnight. We could have a major terrorist attack tomorrow. We could have one in 10 years. People have to be prepared. I think in America, with tens of thousands of Islamic sleeper cells, we have to be concerned in every city, because I think when they attack, as Annie has mentioned in the past, that they can attack anywhere, and I think that they will attack not just one city, but they will go for multiple cities in one particular day, because it would throw the U.S. Out of any type of organization that we think we may have. On 9/11, it was terrible, but can you imagine 9/11 happening in 10 different U.S. cities?
Listen to Kristi Noem today, Secretary of Homeland Security, on this.
With this no-shoes policy, we anticipate that Americans and travelers and those coming into our country will be very excited that they will no longer have to remove their shoes. The one thing that I will say is that doesn't mean that there won't be times once in a while where someone will have to remove their shoes. If they get put into a different situation or need additional layers of screening where that may be asked of them. But overwhelmingly, the policy will be that no longer will that be required of every single person that comes to a checkpoint. The golden age of America is here. We're so excited that we can make the experience for those individuals traveling throughout our airports in the United States much more hospitable, more efficient for them, more timely, and that they can get to their destinations and spend much more time with their loved ones and with their families and with those accomplishing great things for their futures.
Okay, so Sarah Adams says this is not a good idea, Annie, because Al-Qaeda is busy and has been busy. Not only is at TSA refusing to improve security screening for Al-Qaeda's new invisible bombs designed to be worn by trained suicide bombers on U.S. flights, they're also abandoning efforts to detect shoe bombs altogether. If you own airline stock, now might be the time to cash out, because the next attack will not come with a warning. Annie, on radio/TV today, which we're going to replay that whole hour after this broadcast tonight, because you got to see it and hear it. You said, look, these guys have been known for years on working on actually sewing the bombs into their bodies. Tell our audience about that before we let you go.
Yes. Can I just say one thing before I answer that? To give historical fact behind what Dave just said. Remember, Muhammad started preaching in Mecca for 13 years before he moved to Medina and became the warmongering man he became. 13 years of patience to have the money, the numbers, the plan to start conquering. From day one, patience has been mandatory for Muslims to conquer. Now, what Sarah is referring to is, so Al-Qaeda, supposedly this man has been killed in 2017. Again, I personally don't have confirmation. There was never, it wasn't confirmed by Al-Qaeda, or did we see a receipt for it. But their main bomb maker, this brilliant mind of making bombs, he managed to make certain bombs that were also tested, including one of them that was tested here in America. I think is, if my memory recalls, Northwest Flight 523. The bomb was actually built inside underwear. He wore the underwear and walked right through TSA, got into the plane. The bomb maker also created the printer cartridge bomb that was successfully tested. There is also the injectable or surgical implement bombs that he completed where they can surgically place it on the body of the jihadist or inject it into the body of the jihadist, and then someone remotely can basically blow the jihadist with the bomb inside his body when they are at location. The last one, which was the computer inside a laptop, was never tested. Supposedly he was killed before he completed that one. And others that has not been revealed by anyone. We don't know what other formats of bombing he has made, but his obsession was to create bombs that will get through TSA without being detected. Again, if he died in 2017 and everything was pretty much from 2009 to 2017, I can only imagine how much they have successfully completed some of his other ideas that he started but didn't get to finish. If he wasn't killed, I'm sure he has mastered all of those ideas.
All right, so Annie, yeah?
But one thing I want to say about Kristi Noem saying what she said, yes, we're very excited we get to keep our shoes on while continue avoiding flying in America. Yours truly has not been to an airport, getting on a plane since 2018. I have done 33 hours driving across this country for my speaking engagements and events, because I don't care if I'm keeping my shoes on or not, but I watch hijab-wearing, burqa-wearing Muslims passing right through TSA without a screening. So if you want to fix the problem, why don't you start catching them, and then we can keep everything on while getting passed through TSA.
And then, of course, then there's what's going on at the back of the airports and the lack of security at the back end of the airports. I've been hearing from credible sources about the Islamists that are working at the back end of the airport, Annie.
Yes, and I believe you had a caller today on your radio who said his daughter in Texas went through TSA, nothing. They didn't even check the suitcases and nothing of normal. And apparently nobody even spoke English or Spanish for her to ask any questions. It's a real life. It's happening. And by the way, side note, if you remember last night, Brannon, when you asked me, one of the 4 states I mentioned that will be attacked was Texas. And apparently the airports are already opening up the gates.
And you think Texas, I gotta let you go, but you think Texas, you and I talked on the phone last night, you think Texas, Tennessee, and where else?
I said it's going to be Texas, California, Tennessee, and Florida.
Why do you pick those?
Those were the 4, I said, as far as airport and airplane and flight attacks are going to be on those 4 states.
Why?
Why? Number one, the traffic, the number of flights. Number 2, California, Tennessee, to everybody's shock, Florida and Texas have been the most kind and looking the other way group of states when it comes to Islamic jihad and Islamization. So they are a lot easier to attack than, let's say, I don't know, Iowa or some other states that are not looking the other way, or at least going out of their way to appease Muslims and Islamic. Do you want to
promote your liveuptofreedom.substack.com before you go?
Absolutely. I just put out a Substack that I think it's very timely. Again, one of my historical writing where we talk about the involvement of Mufti of Jerusalem in Nazi Germany. liveuptofreedom.substack.com is where you can get that. It is open to public. Read it. It's a good piece to remember how Red-Green Axis can operate.
And don't forget, she has her art. She does beautiful art, handmade art, made by Annie. LUTFstudio.com. LU stands for Live Up to Freedom. That's the acronym. LUTFstudio.com. Annie, thank you for being with us. We're going to go into a break, come back more with Dave Gobbets for a few minutes. Annie, thank you for being with us.
Thanks so much, Brannon.
And folks, thank you for being with us. Don't go away. Dave Gobbets. We're going to wrap it up with a few more conversational pieces with David. Don't forget, he co-wrote a great book, Muslim Mafia. I'm sure you can get it still on Amazon and other places. We're brought to you by you. So listen how you can help support the program. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. I want to thank you for all your support at WVWFoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
Introducing the Sentry Wellness System, the ultimate under-sink water treatment solution designed with you in mind. Say goodbye to harmful toxins and hello to water enriched with essential nutrients like calcium and magnesium. Enjoy the benefits of increased pH for on-demand alkalinity, all from a zero-waste system that fits seamlessly into your home. Installation is a breeze, taking just 15 minutes, so you can have clean, healthy, great-tasting water straight from your tap. Perfect for apartments, homes, rentals, and even RVs. Elevate your hydration and well-being with the Sentry Wellness System because you deserve the best in every drop.
Sentry H2O. Tap into wellness.
And we're back, and thank you again for helping make our broadcast possible by choosing to do business with organizations that have great products that we endorse, that we use. We won't promote things we don't believe in, folks. Your trust in us, and I've been doing this 35 years, is too important. Okay, so if we don't like the product, we don't use the product, we will not endorse and offer the product. Okay, you'll find them at worldviewtube.com/sponsors, everything from Gatatana, Bella Grace, Numi, and of course, worldviewtalk.com. You can throw that up on the lower third if you want, guys. That's a great company. Tina, I think she'll be back with us this week. Satellite phones, worldviewtalk.com. Satellite phones, solar generators, backpacks that are bulletproof. A lot of great products there. You can also use that phone number, 1-866-738-3224, 1-866-738-3224. Joining me again is Dave Govitz. Dave, what do you make about what you were hearing Annie say before we had to let her go?
I think Annie's a great person. I respect everything she says. When you're talking about the airports and what they are doing with the shoes, passengers are not having to take their shoes off anymore. That is so simple and mundane that it is a false sense of security about what our current and past administrations are talking about Islamic terror threats. I have written, and being a former federal agent, I could tell you 10 ways to get on an aircraft today in 2025 that would be not stoppable by any TSA. And I'll give you just one example, and I've written about this. It's not giving away any national top secret information. But as a federal agent, I used to fly armed for over 15 years. And to do this, all you have to do is go up to the counter, like Delta, American Airlines, any airline. You tell them you're a federal agent and you are flying armed. They give you one piece of paper that you fill out with your name, your address, your agency, and then you sign it. Then they give you 3 copies. One you give to the people at TSA when you go through the security line, so you don't have to go through that. And then you give one to the pilot when you get on board, and then you keep one copy for yourself. Now, when you give that, most of the times when you tell the people at the counter at Delta or wherever that you're a federal agent, they want to see your badge. Sometimes they want to see your badge. Most of the times they just slide you the piece of paper. And even if you were to have to give them the badge, badges are made up fraudulently all across the world. It's so easy. And there are hundreds of federal agents who have badges with different departments. Mine was with OSI. You have hundreds of agency acronyms. These people at the counter have no idea what a particular badge is supposed to look like, the credentials in the badge. They take it for granted that it's real, and they allow you to walk on a plane armed. That happens here in 2025, And if I'm telling you about it, I can guarantee you that Al-Qaeda and the other Islamic terror groups understand this and know this.
This is just stunning. I mean, it shouldn't be because we're talking about the government. But this is just stunning what you just told us.
It's a fact, Brannon. I could go into many other ways to get on board an aircraft, but I won't, hoping that they don't know everything. But it is so easy to get on an aircraft and to cause harm. And what city that it would happen in is so unpredictable. They could, as Annie said, do it in Dallas, Tennessee, Florida, etc. But they could pick any little airport, like where I'm near, Roanoke, Virginia. They could pick that airport. Nobody knows about Roanoke, Virginia. But if they did it in 10 small airports across the United States in one day, it would stop the airline industry in its tracks. There would be no flying for possibly months and years, because if they can do it one time, they can do it 2 times.
Here's another report. DHS will slash 75% of staff in its Office of Intelligence and Analysis, cutting 1,000 employees to 275 amid a heightened threat environment. Lawmakers and law enforcement warn the move could cripple vital intel sharing with local agencies. Why on earth are we apparently bringing down the walls? I mean, look at all the stuff we've talked about tonight. We're pulling air marshals off the plane, according to one of their own, associations, asking Secretary Noem to put them back on the planes versus checking for headlights and escorting people to the bathroom at the border. We're not scanning their shoes anymore, and we're now decreasing the staff in the Office of Intelligence Analysis, and we're taking one of the groups right here, U.S. ending terrorist designation for Syrian rebel group. I mean, all this is happening at one time. I don't believe in coincidences, and I'm not attributing any kind of nefarious or bad actor scenarios on the part of anyone in the Trump administration. I'm not. But I am concerned that some people in the Trump administration maybe don't have the knowledge that you or Annie or Steve Emerson or any of these other people have had, and they're being led down a primrose path of bad decisions. I mean, do you think all of this is just happening coincidentally right now while people are warning about Al-Qaeda using invisible bombs and attacking airplanes in America?
No, I've seen this over the years. Our administration, like President Trump, is doing an outstanding job, but I think within some of his advisors pertaining to Islamic-based terrorism, they do not have the knowledge themselves. I would guarantee if you would ask 10 of his advisors on Islamic-based terrorism how many times they've actually been in a mosque, with the 10, you would probably get maybe 1 or 2 that have ever even been in a mosque. And that's like asking a surgeon to do something, a medical professional who has never even been in a hospital or an operating room. Intelligence based on simply reading books and intelligence reports that are coming in every day is only about 5% of what a counterterrorism professional actually needs. You have to go out into the streets and you have to get the intelligence firsthand. You can't get it by reading someone else's book who wrote something about someone else's book. You have to do it firsthand. And I can tell you, some of our first-line defenders in America are law enforcement from the local, state, and federal level. They are not trained. And I have trained probably well over 10,000 law enforcement, and I've got a contract in Michigan right now to start training law enforcement agencies there. The majority could not tell you where Iraq is on a map. They could not tell you the difference between Sunni and Shia. They cannot tell you or inform you of 2 or 3 even basic Arabic words. When you don't know the basics, you cannot protect this country. And I put it in an analogy, Brannon, like with investigating narcotics. Our narcotics officers across the U.S., they are out on the streets every day. They talk to the gang members. They know what an ounce of cocaine sells for, a gram of heroin, etc. Why? Because they are out on the streets doing it. In order for our counterterrorism professionals to be proficient and to protect America, we've got to start getting advisors with, like President Trump, people who have been on the streets. like Annie would be a good person. She's been there, done that, not just something she read in a book. That's the kind of people we need in the White House as advisors, not just PhDs who have went to so many different schools and got a degree in counterintelligence. You've got to have people who have firsthand experience.
Wow, amen to that. Here's a little something that Sarah Adams retweeted today. Here we go.
The majority of the attackers for the upcoming al-Qaeda homeland plot trained in Afghanistan and in Syria, and in both countries, our intelligence community is completely dark about what's going on. Whereas the U.S. government right now has the wrong leader of al-Qaeda and the wrong leader of ISIS. Think about that for a minute. So we can't trust them to thwart this when they don't even know who's running these groups. There needs to be some honesty going to the president. And one of the biggest things people need to be honest with him is the bin Ladens are running the show, and the bin Ladens who are coming to attack us. And do you want to be the next president with the huge 9/11 bin Laden plot, as your legacy? I wouldn't want it. There are 4 bin Laden sons in Afghanistan planning against us. And that's the second generation. Remember, their sons are now grown up. They have sons in their 20s. So there's 3rd generation bin Ladens, including Hassan bin Laden, the son of Saad bin Laden, involved in the upcoming plot on U.S. soil, right? So this isn't just one bin Laden this time. There's 5, 6, 7, 8 bin Ladens.
Okay, now, David, why do you believe, she's saying again that the bin Ladens are behind this. They're running the show. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that Prophet Muhammad is running the show from his grave. He taught 1,400 plus years ago the different Islamic potential terrorists for the future, what to do and what not to do. For instance, we've got to stop focusing on names like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Hezbollah, Hamas, and whatever happens to pop up in the next year, the 5 other acronyms. I have talked to numerous imams, and they say the only reason they come up with these different groups of names is to confuse the intelligence officials and to confuse law enforcement and the people of America and the citizens in Israel. They all have the same purpose. They don't really care about a name. It is just a false sense of information that they're given to their enemies. They have the one purpose to destroy Israel, to destroy America, and to have an Islamic Ummah nation worldwide under Sharia law.
How should Americans be preparing tonight, David?
Well, you've got to start sending information, phone calls to the White House, to the administrations, the conservative administrations throughout America, asking that the law enforcement be allowed to get training from people like myself, Annie, Robert Spencer, etc. Most of the time we're shut down because it's too politically incorrect. I'm not going to go into a class and say that Islam is nice and peaceful and all Muslims are trying to assimilate and there's a peaceful Islam and there's a violent Islam. There is one Islam. And the Islam is what we're seeing in Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Hezbollah, is Islam, because they have the purpose of what Prophet Muhammad said. But we are not allowed to go inside a law enforcement academy and say that, because, first of all, the media would catch hold of it and we would be scrutinized and kicked out. But that's what's got to happen. You've got to have real people with real intelligence start to train our first-line defenders and stop the political correctness from the local, state, and federal level.
Amen to that. David, you have anything you want to promote?
No, I am going to be going to, like I said, Michigan and other states to train law enforcement, and I will be providing information about that to you listeners if they want to hear, what goes on in a law enforcement academy and what their exact knowledge is. And I can tell you on a grade level from 0 to 10, most law enforcement are at the 1 level at very most, and 1 being the least informative.
David Gobbets, MuslimMafia.com, or excuse me, Muslim Mafia is the book. Get it at Amazon. Muslim Mafia, written with Paul Sperry. David, thank you for being with us, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Brannon. I appreciate it.
And folks, we'll be right back after this break. Hello, I'm Brandon Howse. Is the government tracking you? Do they have access to all your data? Well, if you go to worldviewtalk.com, you'll find out about a cell phone company that, well, does not store your data. They don't do that. This is what they're known for. They don't store your data. You have privacy. You're not being tracked. That's why a lot of folks are turning to worldviewtalk.com. You'll find their prices are very competitive. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com. Again, worldviewtalk.com. Oh, while you're there, not only do they have cell phones that aren't tracking you, you can find out about how to get a satellite phone. Should the whole system go down and you want to communicate with a family member or a loved one, you might want to have a satellite phone. Or how about their solar generators? They have great solar generators. Check them all out right now. Worldviewtalk.com. Worldviewtalk.com. Joining me now is Leo Holman. He has a couple brand new articles over at his Substack, which is leoholman.substack.com. I reported on this on the Worldview Report tonight. Leo's the senior executive producer of the Worldview Report. He did a great job on this one. Trump administration prosecuting one of the few doctors who honored his Hippocratic oath. NATO, how about this one? Being humiliated by Russia, and it has no one to blame but itself. And Trump's BBB, just passed by Senate, will massively expand the digital biometric surveillance state for years to come. That and more with Leo Holman. Oh, Leo, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Hello, Brandon. Good to be with you.
Great to have you with us. Okay, Leo, let's start out first with this clip. This is going viral today. A lot of people not happy in the MAGA world right now. Here's President Trump earlier today.
Sure. Your memo and release yesterday with Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the native staff?
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Pam, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Okay, this is not going well on social media today for President Trump. And again, I want President Trump to be successful, because if he's successful, the country is successful, right? This isn't about one man. It's about the country. It's about what we all wanted, to make America great again, which includes making America secure again and securing our borders, which she's doing a good job on that, but still not deporting enough people quickly enough, according to Tom Homan, the borders are. But then we have all this chatter about Al-Qaeda is targeting major airlines with invisible bombs. Seems like we're letting down some of our national security protocols. Seems like Annie Cyrus and many are saying we're going to get hit in 2025. She was saying that in 2024. She's predicting in 2024 we'd get hit in 2025. Sarah Adams, former CIA, many other people are just constantly on social media. It's like they're so, I mean, you watch Sarah Adams, and I'm not saying she's 100% right all the time. Nobody is. But this gal is on a mission. And she seems like she is just like screaming as much as she can, along with others, about these massive threats coming our way. So I want President Trump to be successful. But I don't understand. President Trump himself talked a lot about Epstein and the Epstein files when he's campaigning. Why all of a sudden is this something that he doesn't want to talk about? Leo?
Yeah, like you said, it's about the country. It's not about, what's convenient at the time to talk about. And to me, Brannon, I'm not going to pull any punches. That response, at least the first part of it, before he pivoted to, a lot of good and a lot of bad tragic things have happened. the first part of his response looked very scripted to me, like he was told, perhaps by the intelligence agencies, if he gets any questions on Epstein today or this week, as this whole thing is blown up in their faces, to respond with something like what you just saw, and berate the reporter as if he should only be asking certain questions about certain topics, and why are you wasting my time about this thing that's been around for years? And it was an absolute disgrace. I mean, I'm not going to pull any punches. That response was a disgrace. The issue is not going away. The American people want answers and frankly deserve answers. And if you look, it's the #1 trending topic today on social media. So people are interested in it. They do want full transparency. And I don't think Trump, in typical Trump fashion, he is expert at diverting and distracting people's attention. But I think on this particular issue, he's not going to be successful, Brannon. He's going to lose support if he doesn't confront this head on.
Well, I think, I don't like the fact that Liz Wheeler was out there. I think she was one of the ones waving the notebook. So I'm not a big fan of a lot of those guys.
Oh, no.
But at least Liz Wheeler had this to say today, and I agree with her. She says, President Trump snaps at reporter who asked him Epstein question. Trump is massively misreading his base on this. She's right. Yep. When you're right, you're right. She's right.
Yeah, she's absolutely right. Like I said, this issue's not going anywhere. #1 trending on social media today, including X. So, people are going to say, you know what? I've had enough. We've already seen a number of other issues get flipped and end up with disappointing results. They said they were going to cut the Planned Parenthood funding for 10 years. And what did we end up with, Brannon? The big, beautiful bill cut funding to Planned Parenthood for 1 single year.
1 year.
Whoop-de-doo. Now also the administration is flip-flopped once again on Ukraine. They went from funding Ukraine to not funding Ukraine to funding Ukraine to not funding it and now funding it again in terms of the weapons transfers. And so at a time when we're admittedly low on stockpiles, we've got Israel gearing up for another round, another foray into war with Iran. That's a story out today. Looks like they're getting ready for round 2. We've got Taiwan, a potential flashpoint. And yet we're sending more weapons to this corrupt regime in Kiev. And we've got Trump talking trash against Putin today, saying that he's full of BS. And he didn't use the acronym. He used the full, what that stands for. This is not a time to be poking the bear in Russia. Let Russia do what Russia's going to do in Ukraine. And in fact, they are not doing anything that they haven't said they would do from the very beginning, which is to disarm this corrupt criminal regime that's been firing and shelling rockets into Russian-speaking areas of Ukraine for years, for a decade almost now, under CIA instigation and MI6, the typical color revolution turned ugly, only this time it turned ugly against Russia. They go in to respond and take it out, and we feel like we have to defend this regime in Ukraine? No, let Russia take it out. Let this score be decided. Now, if Russia goes any further than Ukraine, now we've got a problem. I'd agree. But they're not doing anything, Brannon, that Putin hasn't said that was part of the objective from the beginning. They don't want Ukraine as a member of NATO, and they don't want it armed to the hilt with deadly missile batteries coming from Western NATO countries.
Listen, take a look at this, Leo. This is the CIA director, John Radcliffe, and Pete Hegseth. But I want you to particularly concentrate on the CIA director to the far right of the TV screen. Watch his facial reaction when President Trump announces more weapons to Ukraine. Here we go.
Are you planning to send more weapons to Ukraine?
We're going to send some more weapons. We have to. They have to be able to defend themselves. They're getting hit very hard now. They're getting hit very hard. We're going to have to send more weapons. Your defensive weapons primarily, but they're getting hit very, very hard.
Now watch his eyes, okay? Watch his eye as he cuts his eye to what would be his right. Yeah, his right. Like he's listening. It's almost like he doesn't know what the answer is. It's like he almost didn't know what the answer was that was coming. I mean, he was watching, waiting for it. I mean, that's the body language. Watch.
Are you planning to send more weapons to Ukraine?
Boom, eyes cut. Let's listen. What's he going to say?
We're going to send some more weapons. We have to. They have to be able to.
Oh, we're going to send more weapons. Now watch his shoulders go back.
Defend themselves. They're getting hit very hard now.
Big sigh.
They're getting hit.
Now, what do you think that's all about, Leo?
Oh boy, Brannon. The body language there is very telling, isn't it? Now, this is a man, John Radcliffe, who is not averse to arming foreign regimes and getting involved in foreign wars. He is quite a neocon in his own right, but it looks like even maybe some of the neocons in President Trump's administration are getting, let's say, a little tired and a little weary of sending all this weapons and resources to this corrupt regime in Kiev. So, yeah, if Trump is losing support, even among some of the neocons, that's very telling. I would guess that Radcliffe and some of the neocons who are souring on the Ukraine operation, it's because they see it going downhill and they see that it's a no-win operation. It has been from the start. I'm glad they're now starting to see it. But for some reason, there are others in the cabinet who are apparently have the ear of President Trump in a more direct and formidable fashion, who he's listening to. And I would like to know who this is. Is it Rubio? Is it somebody perhaps like Lindsey Graham in the Senate? Whoever it is, they are doing a great disservice to our country. We're willing to go to bat and fight for Ukraine's border, a border that they have violated with Russia repeatedly since 2014, when the CIA puppet regime was installed to antagonize Russia. But it's just not a winning issue. And I'm very surprised at Trump because he usually likes winning issues. Why can't he see that Ukraine in a war, funding Ukraine in a war with Russia is a losing proposition? Russia has 4 or 5 times the population. They can outproduce Ukraine in munitions 3 to 1 in a month's time. They could produce for every one round of ammunition that Ukraine is able to either buy from or receive from the West or produce itself. Russia can produce 3.
Yeah. Do you think the CIA director was concerned because he knows that these weapons are being sold on the black market?
Who knows, Brannon?
And they're maybe making it back into the U.S.? Do you think it's because the CIA director, he can see all the reported homes that Zelensky's buying and owning? And he's thinking, this guy's a grifter. We're just funneling him more weapons? Is it because he knows that we are so depleted in our own weaponry and that we're at great risk in America now? I mean, as the CIA director, he must be, okay, I'm not saying this to be critical of President Trump. Some people just are not big readers, okay? They're more listeners, right? That's how they learn. Different people learn different ways. Some learn by listening. Some learn by listening and watching. Some learn by writing. Some learn by reading. Some, like many of us, like myself, learn from all of it, right? The reading, the writing, the listening. It's all, right? I don't think it's pretty well known President Trump, I don't think, is a big reader, okay? So that Radcliffe, as the CIA director, is reading a ton more national security briefings than President Trump. He's got to know some things that are related to Ukraine, Zelensky, and these weapons for that kind of put his shoulders back and sigh body language, right?
There's also the possibility, I do agree that he's probably Trump knows this as well, though, because he's spoken about it. Our stockpiles of key munitions are getting depleted. Okay, so Trump knows that. There's no question about it because he's mentioned it, I think, in the last few days. But the other issue, I think, is who he's listening to. And who knows that he's not getting phone calls from, foreign leaders in London and in Jerusalem. I believe the Mossad and MI6 are two of the biggest instigators of keeping this war going in Ukraine, Brannon. And so it was interesting that he announced this about Ukraine and continuing the funding right after he got out of a meeting with Netanyahu. So I think Netanyahu wants to see Russia continue to be occupied with defending its own border, as opposed to having to worry about Russia getting more back involved in Syria like it was. We've got this new regime in Syria, which is killing Christians, by the way. There's another onslaught being reported today where JTS, this militant regime in Syria, HTS, is an affiliated group from them, is heading towards a Christian and Alawite enclave in Syria. And we all know what happens when that's allowed to take place. It's going to be another slaughter.
And yet, we're hearing that the president of Syria, who's tied to that group, right, is going to be getting a White House visit in September.
Yes. So, and Trump has made zero mention about the slaughter. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone in the audience or whatever, but I have heard zero mention from Trump about the danger and the persecution that's going on against Christians in Syria. If he's mentioned it, it might have been once at a low-key event. I don't know. I follow this stuff, and I usually hear if something like that is met. That's not saying I couldn't have missed one word or sentence about it, but he's certainly not gotten on his soapbox about it like he could as president of the United States. Stop this slaughter in Syria. Or if he was half as adamant about that as he was with Iran, Iran needs to eliminate its nuclear program or it will be bombed like it's never been bombed before. Say something like that to the Syrian regime. Stop slaughtering Christians and Alawites or you'll be bombed and taken out. There's been nothing to that effect. Nothing. And so it's very disappointing, the entire Middle East foreign policy. Trump's doing some good things here at home. I don't want to be, 100% against the Trump administration. That is doing some good things here at home. But the foreign policy right now, I think, is very suspect. And also the treatment of the Epstein files, like we've discussed
let's talk
earlier.
about the big, beautiful bill and your article that it will massively expand the digital biometric surveillance state for years to come. More with Leo Holman on the other side of the break. Don't go away.
Consumers often ask, what should I expect when I take the Bella Grace elixir? And the answer's varied. It really depends on what your health and wellness needs are. I would consider this as your foundational core product for a whole range of health and wellness issues. Let me give you a few examples. If you're a little bit older and you have some joint health issues, some problems with mobility and discomfort, the elixir is going to be your best friend. If you have some skin health issues, wrinkles, hydration, aging, all of those elements are going to be benefited from the elixir, including age spots. Now, if you're in a younger demographic, maybe visual health is where you need some assistance. Eye fatigue, dry eyes, all of those are going to be benefited by the elixir. It's a core product because it benefits so many.
But with Brannon, it's always cutting edge stuff happening in the world, and it's not just from the political angle, because you can get that on other platforms, but it's always from the biblical angle. So you're dealing with a guy that loves Jesus, you're dealing with a guy that's very intelligent, you're dealing with a guy that is cutting edge conservatism, and you're dealing with a guy that wants to be biblical all at the same time. And so for that reason alone, I hope many, many people will not just lift up his ministry in prayer, but will also financially get behind it, because he, from the angle I'm trying to describe, he really is the only game in town. And we desperately need it in these last days. Can I get an amen to that?
And welcome back. Glad you're with us. And as always, thank you for your support at worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. And don't forget about all the other great products. I do take the Bella Grace each and every day. I'll take it now, lest you think I'm telling you otherwise. I mean, look at that hair. I got hair growth. I saw some pictures over the 4th of July where they were like a year or two old. The pictures were actually like 2 years old, 3 years old. I'm like, wow, my hair was getting kind of thin. So I do this every day. Let's go to melissahousebg.com. Roll it up like a tube of toothpaste. You don't want to lose any of it. You don't want to waste any of it. So get it all out of there. I do that every day. And I also switch with this. This has got glutathione in it to detox your cells. Hey, Leo Holman and I had a story the other night in the Worldview Report about all the microplastics, all the toxins in the air, processed food. I mean, it's everywhere. You can hardly avoid it, even if you're being, very disciplined. Toxins everywhere. Do you want to detox your cells? Glutathione helps detox your cells. Over 165,000 studies on glutathione. Okay? In fact, studies show it may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. You swish with it for about 3 minutes, and in the reports and the studies show it's in your bloodstream in about 90 seconds. Then you can spit it out or swallow it, whichever you want to do. But I do the Bella Grace every day. I do the Numi every day. And I do the green drink, the Gatatana, every day. There you go. WorldViewTube.com/sponsors to find all of them. Great ways to support your health and us at the same time. WorldViewTube.com/sponsors. Here's the headline again. Trump's BBB just passed by Senate will massively expand the digital biometric surveillance state for years to come. All right, Leo, as you know, we've been talking about Sarah Adams and others. Annie Cyrus, the end of 2024, said right here on the show, expect a major terrorist attack in America in 2025. Sarah Adams and others are saying something is in the wind, that Al-Qaeda wants to target airlines with invisible bombs. What are your thoughts on that, number one? And two, do you believe that just like 9/11 gave us the Patriot Act, a major terrorist attack in the country would have Americans surrendering to biometrics under the guise of safety and protection?
100% on the second one. On the first one, Brannon, yes, we've been talking about for years that our government, forget about the wide open border, which is a fairly recent thing under 4 years of Joe Biden. Even before that, we've had 35 years of our government flying in refugees, hundreds of thousands, from countries that hate us, everywhere from Syria to Iraq to Yemen to Sudan to Somalia, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, and all of these refugee communities have had some bad actors. Phil Haney and myself went and testified about a year before he died before a state Senate committee in South Dakota. And the topic of our testimony was just on crimes committed by Somali refugees alone, violent crimes, okay? Mostly in Minnesota, but in other states, Minnesota, South Dakota, in that whole upper Midwest area, as well as in Ohio, in the Columbus, Ohio area, and some even in Atlanta, Georgia, Seattle, Washington. The Somali community has a reputation for being, number one, grifters, but number two, committing violent crimes. And we were there to warn them about South Dakota to not expand in their refugee intake and to call a moratorium on refugee resettlement. They totally ignored our testimony, and it's blown up in their faces several times since. And this has gone on, like I said, for 35 years before Biden opened the border. And then we had to worry about not only who is our government flying in and putting, signing up, for every manner of food stamps and every other government goodie, but we also had to worry about the border. So to think there's not sleeper cells here that could be activated at any moment, I think is entirely naive, Brannon.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about another one of your articles. And that is one we reported on the Worldview Report tonight. Trump administration prosecuting one of the few doctors who honored his Hippocratic oath to do no harm during the COVID madness. This one's really sad because this guy could go to prison. He's not the one that should be going to prison. Right, Leo?
No, he is a plastic surgeon with a practice in Salt Lake City, Utah. And he has a stellar record of protecting his patients. He didn't do anything wrong or illegal. All that he did was, upon request from parents, he would give children saline shots instead of vaccines so that they could go to school and not be singled out as, as somehow violating or not being consistent with that whole madness about you get your shots or you're going to be a danger to your family and your community. So children were given saline shots. Adults who didn't want the shot but were having their jobs threatened were given vaccine cards to say that they were vaccinated when they actually weren't. And they're charging this doctor with absconding or seizing government property. That would be the shots, right? Because he flushed them down the drain when he handed out the vaccine card. And all sorts of a conspiracy. I mean, he could go to jail, Brannon, for 35 years, and all he did was try to protect his patients.
All right, let's go.
And none of it was done without their knowledge. Like I said, these were patients who came to this doctor saying, please help us. We don't want to get these shots. We think they're dangerous. They're untested. And he did what he could to help them.
Let's go to this one. NATO is being humiliated by Russia, and it has no one to blame but itself.
Yeah, I mean, I partly covered this in the earlier segment, but, Ukraine is a lost cause. It's been going on for 3 years now. They can't defeat Russia. This dealing Russia a strategic defeat, which is the, admitted goal of this war. If you talk to people like Lindsey Graham, we want to deal Russia a strategic defeat. Sorry, it's not going to happen. Russia has such a more formidable military operation that apparently than Western intelligence sources thought. It's been proven in this war. And now they're, sadly to say, their military machine is even stronger now than when the war began over 3 years ago. They've got all this battle-ready experience now. They've been able to test their weapons against Western NATO weapons and found that they compete very favorably. They've got vast experience now in drone warfare. They're going to defend their homeland no matter what NATO tries to do. It was looking like Ukraine might be at its end, but now President Trump has announced that more weapons are coming from Washington. So, the West might be able to drag this out, who knows, for another year or two. But at some point, Russia will win this war, and it will be in the driver's seat as to setting the terms of the peace. And that is really the despicable thing about this entire event, because if Washington and London had allowed Zelensky to sign a peace treaty with Russia in April of 2022, just a couple months after this war started, Ukraine would have gotten very favorable terms. But now they're going to be totally defeated, and Russia's going to set the terms. And President Trump acts like he doesn't understand this. He's accused Putin of, just indiscriminately killing people, which is not the case. This bombing raid into Kiev with drones and whatnot a couple nights ago killed one person, and Trump was all upset about, he's killing masses of people. He had no qualms about how many people were killed in Iran by Israeli missiles. So it's a double standard. I think Putin sees it, and he's no longer taking Trump serious as a peace broker or a peace partner.
By the way, I was just looking while you were talking there, listening, and well, I can chew gum and walk at the same time. So I was listening to you and looking up, and others are saying that what we saw from the CIA director, John Radcliffe, was not like, it was celebratory. So some are interpreting the body language as celebratory, like, oh yeah, great. The plan is falling in place.
That would square better with who I know John Radcliffe is, which is a neocon who's never met a war and he didn't want to get involved in. So, I wouldn't put it past him, but who knows?
Yeah, I wish he would just speak his mind, because it's everywhere today, people playing that video and trying to comment on it. By the way, I also just found this. Alex Jones on President Trump and the Epstein case files. Watch and listen.
I saw that.
So now by coming in and being part of the cover-up, the Trump administration has become part of it. I mean, it's just, you cannot see it any other way. So I just got to the office. I'm going to go throw up, actually. And this only happens every few years when something really, really bad happens or something. I mean, I'm physically going to puke probably right now. My mouth is watering right now. It's because I have integrity. And, I just really need the Trump administration to succeed and to save this country. And they're doing so much good. And then for them to do something like this tears my guts out. And
so anyway, whether that's real, whether he's acting, I have no idea. But on social media tonight, Leo, it is not going well.
Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't matter if he was being genuine or acting there. The fact of the matter is he has a very large audience that is very strongly MAGA. And if he starts souring on Trump, I'd say Trump's got a bit of a problem.
All right, let's see. We got anything else? We did get a good Supreme Court ruling today. The Supreme Court did rule 8-1 to allow President Trump to gut the federal workforce in any department he chooses. Of course, there was only one no vote. Can you guess who it was, Leo?
Oh yeah, Kenji Jackson. Yeah. Yeah.
Was that a guess or did you already know?
No, I didn't know that was a guess.
Well, you got it right. Ding, 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 ding. You just won a brand new car.
Thank you, Brannon.
You're welcome. Just kidding about the car. But anyway, I mean, a Matchbox car. I'll give you one of those. Let's see. Well, is there anything else you want to say before we let you go, Leo?
No, I just think, that's one example of some things Trump's doing right. He's trying to downsize these federal agencies. But the whole big, beautiful bill and the surveillance state, I encourage people to read my article because I've got some hard facts in there about the money and where it's going in terms of beefing up the surveillance state. And the question I have, when they erect all of these monitors and surveillance poles and license plate readers, I've got them going up in my hometown of Noonan, Georgia. You can see these black poles. They look very ominous. And what they do is they scan every license plate that goes by in real time. And these are going up, this is a city of like 40,000 people. So if it's going up there, it's going up all across America.
Oh, yeah.
These are the types of things that are going to be funded by the big, beautiful bill. And who's going to surveil the surveillors is my question.
Yeah. Well, weren't you the one that reported on the fact that, I'm going to go back there, Leo, because it ties in. Let's see here. Here we go. Yeah, you. Executives from Palantir, Meta, OpenAI being brought into U.S. Army as colonels to turbocharge military's use of drone warfare, robot soldiers, and other high-tech killing machines. How do we know that a lot of these guys won't be the ones who, when you say who's surveilling the surveillors, it's going to be big business. Don't you think they're going to use big business to do a lot of this?
Absolutely. And all of these high-tech military applications, Brannon, all have, typically they all have civilian applications as well. So let's just take, for example, robot soldiers. I read an article today that within 2 or 3 years, we could be facing scenarios where we encounter a being on the street in our home city or whatever, and we are not going to be sure if it's human or machine. Is it a human or is it a robot? The advances they're making are taking place at such a rate that within 2 to 3 years, we're being told now that we may not be able to tell the difference between what's human and what's machine. And so think of all the havoc that law enforcement and other government entities or even private entities could wreak on society with basically, we're talking about fake human beings walking around in our cities.
Yep. And as we go to a break real quick, come right back with more tonight. Roseanne Barr. Mr. President, yes, we still care about Epstein. Is there a time not to care about child sex trafficking? Read The Blank Room. Roseanne Barr. LeoHolman.com, LeoHolman.substack.com, LeoHolman.substack.com. senior executive producer of the Worldview Report, Leo Holman, and purveyor at leoholman.com and leoholman.substack.com. Leo, thanks for being with us.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Brannon.
Leo Holman checking in, folks. You can check out his website, all right? We're going to be back with more. You know it, right? Brought to you by you. We push it out free every night. Every night, free of charge. Brought to you by you, through your support. We're not brought to you by a grant from USAID, the federal government, Big Pharma, Big Ag, the military-industrial complex. None of them. Brought to you by you. WorldviewTube.com/sponsors. Be right back.
I'll tell you one little quick story. We had a Worldview Weekend client who lived in California, lost their house. Very wealthy guy. He didn't use Bitcoin. He came over here, drove to Arizona with $286,000 worth of his gold because he had no money and no house available. His bank was shut down because he couldn't have access to his bank account.
Was this during the fire? Was this during the fires?
During the fire. Didn't have his driver's license. He lost it. The state wouldn't give him a new license because he had no active mailing address. Real mess. So he came to Arizona to buy a house. He's moving everything over. He said, the only thing I got in my possession that I can get liquid with right now is my gold. I gave him a check for $286,000, and guess what? I didn't need his social, his driver's license. Sort of smiled, and I said, you know, I know you and Brannon talked about how this worked, but boy, this is great. I feel good. I got my money. Nobody bothered me, and I'm protected, and it's private.
Just simply go to worldviewgold.com, fill out the form, worldviewgold.com.
Nature has a rhythm, a quiet strength, a way of restoring, protecting, and renewing us. Wellness isn't just about how you feel today. It's the quiet choices you make for tomorrow. At myvitamin.com/worldview, we've made daily self-care simple. Quality vitamins, daily supplements, and targeted nutrition. myvitamin.com/worldview makes it easy. Pure ingredients thoughtfully combined, tailored for your body. Formulated by a doctor who has over 25 years of medical practice experience and is a certified functional medicine provider. Visit myvitamin.com/worldview today and take the next step towards strength, balance, and resilience. Discover the wide range of med packs made for you and your loved ones. What you nurture today becomes the strength you walk in tomorrow.
Joining me now is Dr. Lana. I want to talk about a very important topic. I want to use this video to set it up. Watch this.
Call any random oncologist, not to shame them, primary care physician, pick up the phone and said, you do a CBC, correct? Yes.
Can you define what a CBC is?
A complete blood count. Just you take a blood and you look for...
Yeah, the blood screen that everyone
blood
gets.
screen.
Yeah.
For whether you're anemic or not anemic.
Yeah.
People understand that, right? Red blood cells. And you see these red blood cells. And you give chemotherapy and radiation. And you ask, what do you look for? Well, we look to see if you're anemic. So we can give you this drug that Amgen makes called Epogen. We look to see whether your platelets have gone down. So we can give you a platelet transfusion. We look to see whether your neutrophils have gone down so that you don't get an infection called neutropenic fever. So we give you this drug, Epogen. Well, the problem is, does red blood cells cure cancer? No. Does platelets cure cancer? No. Does neutrophils kill cancer? No. What kills cancer? The natural killer cells and T cells. So in that CBC, there's a thing called the lymphocytes, correct? Do you look at that? No. The only cell that is important that kills cancer, 99.9% of oncologists will say, we don't pay any attention to that.
Wow. Well, she studied with some of the leading oncologists in the world. Let's see if that is true. I'm assuming that it is. Dr. Lana, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Always a pleasure. I studied with cancer specialists. They studied cancer, and this is sadly true. And I know I'm going to say your audience probably is not shocked that that's true.
So you do the blood work, and the very things they should be checking for, they don't check for. And of course, then the money the money machine kicks in, and you're off to chemo and radiation. What should you be using to help your body fight cancer? It's kind of a loaded question because I already know the answer.
Right. And there is a specific protocol, and your audience is going to be thrilled in a few weeks to see what you and I are doing together to really help American families. But the short answer here is you come at it from all kind of areas, right? And it's nothing but a profound failure of your immune system. And number one, I'm going to jump to the blood work really quick. And this is very simple. You need to look at the lymphocytes, like this, brilliant doctor said. You need to look at the killer cells that kill the cancer, and the lymphocytes are your white blood cells, to keep it simple. And you've got B cells in there, and think B like bone marrow, killing off, destroying like the bad bacteria and bone marrow. Those are B cells. They're going to be, they're made in the bone marrow, and they're out there to fight foreign invaders like, bad bacteria. That's the B cells. And they're part of your lymphocytes, or part of your white blood cells. Then you have the T cells. You hear a lot about the T cells. They're the lymphocytes that they're going to start to directly kill off the bad guys, if you will. They can kill off viruses and what have you. And then you have the killer cells, the NK killer cells they are a part of the lymphocytes, the white blood cells, and they're going to kill off the rogue or malignant or cancer cells. And that's what we should be looking at, because the lymphocytes will drop, and you don't want them to drop. You want them to stay in a normal range. And what causes lymphocytes to drop? COVID, viruses, sickness, medication, just all the things, all the normal things are going to cause your lymphocytes to drop when you need to be building them up. So to answer your question really quick, you said, what can we do? Obviously, good whole food, but they're trying to destroy our food supply as well. You need to get out in the sunshine. You need to move the body. Those bad malignant cells, they hate heat. They hate movement. So get out and sweat, and, get out in the sun and eat the good whole foods. There's a lot more to it. Believe it or not, and we can't make this up, Brannon, one of the things that, there's a group of nutrients that lymphocytes need, okay? Lymphocytes need zinc. Lymphocytes need omega-3 fatty acids. Lymphocytes need beta-carotene. Lymphocytes need vitamin C. What do you think is the solution to all of that? It has all the nutrients. The Gatatana has all of that in it. And who made Gatatana? God. This is nature's food. David Hunter and man just dried it and put it in a jar for us to consume as humans. But the Gatatana contains the nutrients that your lymphocytes need to thrive.
And our sales for Gatatana since February, they just keep going every month, up, 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 up. And I saw what the sales were for the month of June, and they were up from the month before. That month was up from the month before. That month was up from the month before. So our audience, like myself, I'm taking it every day, along with my Bella Grace and my Numi, but it's growing. And how could you not grow when you do this study and you realize scientifically what it really is? And of course, at melissahouseGPA.com, you can read the 5 clinical trials. But I wanted the audience to know that your fellow viewers, a lot of them have subscribed and are taking this every month, every day, and they're getting a shipment every month. Now, let me go to this one. One little scoop, that's it. And Dolly gets half a scoop every morning on her food. And she's over here. Can you guys do a shot? Can we get her in the shot right now? We don't have a camera on her right now. Well, she's sleeping. Here is the Vigilant Fox. I really like their website. They got this out today. Statins exposed. Truth bound America's most prescribed drug. You've heard that cholesterol causes heart disease, but the truth is it actually helps repair damaged arteries. Over 40 million Americans take statins for, quote, heart health, but they may be unknowingly harming their muscles, liver, and nerves in the process. If someone you love is on a statin, read this before it's too late. Cholesterol was never the villain. The idea that it clogs the arteries like grease and a pipe, that's a big form of marketing, not science. The truth, cholesterol repairs damaged blood vessels. And lower cholesterol is actually linked to higher mortality. Let that sink in. Now prepare to have your mind blown and forget everything you've ever been told about cholesterol. So how did the cholesterol myth begin? In the 1960s and 70s, a fierce debate emerged over the cause of heart disease. A scientist named Ansel Keys-Cherry picked data from 7 countries to, quote, prove, end quote, that fat and cholesterol were the causes. But if he had chosen different countries, what would have happened? The result would have shown the opposite. Put it plainly, his research was garbage. A garbage study is now nutritional dogma, and it's fueling a $1 trillion industry. Meanwhile, another scientist, John Yudkin, warned that sugar added to food by the processed food industry was the real culprit, which seems like a valid hypothesis. But what happened? You can probably guess. The sugar industry paid off the scientists to discredit Yudkin. They buried his work, hijacked public health for decades. Sound familiar? The trust the science thing, LOL. This fake science paved the way for statins, the cholesterol-lowering drugs you've been told save lives, but do they? Statins have since become a $1 trillion market. It's all a bit suspicious, if you ask me. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Lana?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I want to give all the credit to the amazing medical doctors who trained me, who these doctors did the right thing for the patient. I went back and forth to Cleveland Clinic with Dr. Esselstyn, and you heal the blood vessels with a specific food protocol. So you can reverse the nation's leading killer, cardiovascular disease, with specific foods, and there's a way to do it. And hang on to your hats, everybody, because Brannon and I are going to help you out in a few weeks here. And so that said, the cholesterol normalizes when you put that food program in place, and it is very, very specific. So the statins, you're absolutely right. And a quick story, and I share about my mom again. She's only on 1 low-dose med, not a statin. The statins were honestly going to kill her. She kept saying, Lana, oh my gosh, my muscles, my legs, and she never complains. She had such muscular pain, she could hardly walk. Her legs were she was almost immobile, and it was the statins. And I'm like, Mom, it's the cholesterol meds. And I get along very well with her medical doctor. And we instantly, she's like, I'm not taking another pill. And this was years ago. And almost, the next day she woke up almost instantly and felt much better. The pain was gone. I just had this conversation with a patient who had a heart attack last year. I just had a conversation with them this morning, and their cardiology team, when they had the heart attack at a big hospital, of course, put them on all kind of medications, a couple of blood thinners, a couple, not one, a couple, and statins. And they knew right away that these medications, I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but the statins are a class of drugs that do more harm than good. There's other drugs as well that do more harm than good. Statins are absolutely in that class. I mean, they're dangerous.
They're dangerous. Well, I just put over at worldviewreport.com today a great article. If people want to go get it, they can go to worldviewreport.com. I put up an article there by the Midwest doctor. Here it is, The Forgotten Side of Medicine, the great cholesterol scam and the dangers of statin, exploring the actual causes and treatments of heart disease. And that's over at worldviewreport.com, your aggregated news site. I put up every day various stories I think you should know about. So guys, search for that. Okay, so Dr. Lana, we got a big announcement coming here. After July 14th, is that right?
Right. We're going to start with these things you will not ever find at your well-meaning medical doctor's office. We're going to start with gut health. And I mean, there are very specific protocols. I was trained by amazing, actually pediatric gastroenterologist. So this works. So those of you that are suffering with acid reflux, GERD, with bloat, with irritable bowel syndrome, even Crohn's and colitis, there's a very, very specific program you're not ever going to hear at the gastroenterologist's office or your primary care physicians. They're just not taught this. That is coming. And a couple of weeks after that, at the end of July, your socks are going to be knocked off, because this is something I've never released either one of these, because I always felt like I needed to guide the patient. They're that detailed. The other one is the longevity, independence, and wellness program for families. So it's the family longevity, independence, and wellness program. And when you get that, I hope you all invest in it. It'll be the second Bible to your family's wellness. Brannon and I are locking arms here, because you're not going to hear this elsewhere. And I am going to guide you through it like, you're working with me. So it'll be an amazing investment that will hopefully help your family for years and years to come. And when you dive into them, you'll say, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's telling us all these things. But Brannon and I have talked for a long time. We're like, how can we serve you? And how can we help American families?
Absolutely. And it's, of course, going to be a big part of our health and home channel. Of course, we have our normal 24/7 stream. And then underneath that, we have our home and health channel. And soon, so I'm told, there'll be eventually our history channel and then our Bible prophecy channel. But right now we have two. The 24/7 stream you're watching now, right below it is our home and health channel. And of course, we take a lot of these very interesting programs about statins and your blood work, and we run those as just very interesting and educational programs on our health channel. Some of you guys aren't really into that. Like my wife, she can watch those kind of videos all day long. My wife loves watching interviews on health, and she was a medical social worker by training, but she just is very interested in this health topic, and of course is interested in keeping us all healthy here, right? I guess
absolutely.
She wants to keep me around, apparently. It makes me feel good. She doesn't want me going off early.
Right. None of us do, especially your wife and your family. Right. No, you're out there doing good work, and we have all been sold a bill of goods, and people know a little bit about what to do, and you're all really savvy out there, and you've watched Brannon for years, but you need the rest of the ingredients. It's like if somebody says, oh, I'm going to give you my Nana's chocolate chip cookie recipe, and they left a couple things out. They're like, oh, sure, eat whole foods and don't eat fried foods and drink more water and lose weight. Well, okay, all that, but really specifically, what do you do? How do you do it? When do you do it? And so I don't leave out any ingredients, and I've not ever put this together like this. Ever.
Excellent. Well, we're excited. We're so honored to be working with you. So that'll be coming after July 14th, folks. So stay tuned. Inspiredbywellness.com, inspiredbywellness.com. And of course, if you're interested in Gatatana, which is again, David Hunter and Lana brought that to us. So we're so thankful to work with them on that as well. MelissaHowseGPA.com. Like I said, I take it every day. Dolly gets a half a scoop every morning. I personally feed her. I don't let. Occasionally, Melissa has to if I'm busy, but it's generally a no-no because the dog will follow around and be with whoever lets it out, whoever takes care of it, whoever feeds it, whoever plays ball with her, right? So generally, I'm the one that feeds her 99.9% of the time. So I personally put the half a scoop on her food every morning. I don't do it at night because I don't want her all hyper at night. Not that I'm saying it makes them hyper, but it does give them energy, which is fine. You want them to have good, healthy energy through the day. But I personally do a half a scoop for her, and I get a scoop every day. MelissaHowseGPA.com. So there you go.
This
all right.
Fuels your lymphocytes. These are the nutrients that fuels your killer cells, your white blood cells.
So your body can fight off cancer and all kinds of stuff.
That's why the stories in Canada. That's why those hundreds of thousands of stories in Canada. There's your answer. It's God's nutrition fueling your fighter cells.
Well, and we love to show this. And there it is. This is the headline right there. There you go. All right. Thank you, Dr. Lana.
Thank you. God bless everyone.
Thank you. Joining me now is Congressman Glenn Grothman, 6th District in Wisconsin. Remember, he was just with us in April at the Waukesha Expo Center. We had a full house, didn't we? And he came and spoke and visited with some of you guys. It was great. Congressman, welcome back. You're the 6th District in Wisconsin, correct?
Correct. Along Lake Michigan, places like Sheboygan or Manitowoc. Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So you're back in the district right now. You're in Wisconsin tonight?
Correct.
How are things going in Wisconsin before we get to the big, beautiful bill? How are things in Wisconsin? Because, we have a lot of your voters, a lot of your supporters listening to this program.
Good. Well, we're very discerning here in the 6th Congressional District. And when I'm on Brannon Howse, I always catch people in the next couple of days. So I am Brannon Howse. So I feel very informed voters.
Thank you. Indeed. So we share something in common. They're your voters and my listeners. So that's a pretty good partnership there, I think. By the way, remind our audience how many years you've been representing that great district.
This is my 11th year.
Wow, good for you. Good for you. All right, what big issues, before we get to the big, beautiful bill, what big issues are you working on right now? Or did any big issues that you were personally working on get passed or rolled into the big, beautiful bill?
We'll give you an exclusive. We are working on 2 projects right now, to a certain extent with the assent of the Trump administration. One of those we've talked before on this show about the degree to which our government penalizes people for getting married. These are the big welfare programs initiated under Lyndon Johnson, whether you're talking about low-income housing, food stamps, earned income tax credit, General Internal Revenue Code, Medicaid programs, all of them. If you get married, if you're a single person benefiting by these programs and get married, you can easily wind up losing $25,000 or $30,000. And that's why, in the 1960s and the 1950s, you would have, maybe 4% of the population, 4% of the children born in this country did not have a mother and father at home. Now you're over 40%. Why is that? It's because the federal government punishes people who get married. I think there's a committee or commission set up by President Trump to look at this problem. I'm glad he's going to be engaged on it.
Good. Excellent. Well, we need more moms and dads getting married, raising kids inside marriage, because as you just pointed out, the studies show that's how kids flourish and do the best. The big, beautiful bill, 900 pages. What about it do you like? What about it do you not like?
I think the big benefit is we're finally going to be putting enough money into enforcing immigration, not only to stop illegal immigration, we're going to begin to deport more people who've come here illegally. You got to remember the Biden administration allowed a little under 10 million people here without really, I think, an appropriate asylum claim in a 4-year period. It's bad for America, obviously creating a housing shortage, changing America, and that you have people who came here, first of all, broke the law just to come here, which is a problem, and even more, may not have the appropriate viewpoint towards the role of government that we need to keep our country free. So I think you're going to begin to see these people deported. I'll remind your listeners that every year in this country, about 850,000 people are sworn in as new citizens. Every year, we issue about 500,000 work permits for people to come here. So it's not like it's impossible to come here. We're very generous with allowing people to come here legally. And you look at the number of people sworn in as citizens, you're talking over 800,000. Back when I was a child in the 60s, it was more like 110, 120,000. So we're swearing in legally about 6 times what we used to about 60 years ago. And We've been very generous, but it's time we enforce these laws. We've got to give the government the money necessary to enforce these laws, or our country will be permanently changed.
I talked to someone today that has a friend that's a headhunter. And apparently the government is now cracking down on a certain type of document that illegals had, and the government's not accepting this document anymore. That, I guess, moving them out of the country. And the individual that knows this headhunter told me today that the headhunter told him that just in the last few days now, they're getting all of these companies calling and saying, we need 30 employees, we need 40 employees, we need 60 employees, 60 people, we need them now. What are you hearing across the country or in Wisconsin? Are you hearing that there is a, whether it's poultry or meat packing plants or whatever it might be, what are you hearing as far as businesses trying to fill slots? Are you hearing anything?
The economy is strong. I think it's become noticeably stronger under President Trump. And we're in a situation in which, now is the time to look for a job. And to a certain extent, that's a reflection of the strong economy. To a certain extent, it's a reflection of the fact that maybe some of these companies had people here illegally, or we are not now accepting documentation they used to accept, and businesses are having to backfill those positions. But again, I'll remind your listeners, if we begin to allow everybody who comes here who just doesn't break the law, why is not that going to continue, right? If we're going to have immigration laws in this country, we have to be able to say that if you come here illegally, you'll be deported. Otherwise, people will begin to come here, whether they come here on a tourist visa and overstay, whether they come here, I was in California a few years ago, whether they come here on boats in the Pacific Ocean, whatever, you cannot enforce your laws if you say, once you cross the Rio Grande, we're not going to deport you. So we're going to continue down that path. If we wind up needing more people, we can increase the number of work visas that are issued by the United States to make sure we're getting the best, most law-abiding people. But we cannot just say 10 million people came here under Biden, we're going to keep those people here. That's just not no way to run an immigration system.
Exactly. No way to run an immigration system. You put out a statement here. Look at this, folks. The American people gave us a mandate after 4 years of failure under President Biden to revive prosperity in our country. The very first sentence says that the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill is a historic victory for Americans as we've avoided the largest tax hike in our nation's history. Now, I know there are some things in the Big Beautiful Bill that some of us don't like, but this one here I think is huge because small businesses, medium-sized businesses, they cannot afford the largest tax hike in American history. So this is a big deal.
Right. Your listeners remember we had tax cuts in 2017. Those tax cuts aimed at the middle class. I got complaints from tax cuts in 2017. The people who complained were the wealthy, okay, because we got rid of the tax deduction for taxes on state and local taxes. Got rid of that deduction. And primary people who benefited by that deduction were the very rich. So we had a tax cut aimed at the middle class in 2017. If we got rid of that tax cut, it's the middle class who would have borne the brunt of the tax increase. So we had to extend those tax cuts, which is a good thing. You can see President Trump added other tax cuts on for people making less than $100,000. Got rid of the tax on overtime, got rid of the tax on tips, both aimed at middle class people. Obviously, big wealthy CEOs, they're making more than $100,000 in the first place. Secondly, they're not the type of people who get tips. They're not the type of people working hourly on overtime.
Let's talk about the border. I've got a video here of a guy that is tracking what's going on with the border up in Canada. I guess we hear a lot of talk about the border, obviously in South Mexico, America border. Here he is talking about Canada, because I know this is a big hot topic for you. And this is, of course, getting closer to your neck of the woods in Wisconsin. Here we go. Listen to this.
Hey guys, it's your friend Anthony Aguero for the American Border Story, and we currently find ourselves on the U.S. northern border, and right behind me, as you can see, is Canada. We've been investigating up and down in this rural area, and we've determined that there are still people crossing into the country illegally. We're going to bring you guys more updates, and a full report is our day one of being up here on the Canadian border. Stay tuned for more. Your friend Anthony Aguero, the American Border Story. Thank you guys for your support.
All right, and we when one of my documentaries that came out, I think in 2019, we played a clip from a national security expert that said, be careful, guys. Canada is going to be like an aircraft carrier from which Islamic terrorists will launch terrorist attacks in America. It'll be like an aircraft carrier launching attacks. How concerned are you, or what are you hearing as we're getting reports, not just from him, but other people, that a lot of attention is being paid on the southern border, but not the northern border?
Well, I think the Trump administration will pay more attention to the northern border. He's right, particularly after our involvement in helping Israel out in the Middle East. There is the danger that hostile countries, primarily Iran, but maybe also groups based in Afghanistan, may try to begin some terrorist attacks, which is another reason why it's so important we put the additional money in this bill towards enforcing our border.
I don't know if you're getting any briefings. I know you get national security briefings that maybe you cannot talk about. But we're hearing from former CIA folks like Sarah Adams and other folks that are, some of these people have been in the intelligence arena. Now they're out, but they're continuing to track and monitor and study. And there seems to be growing chatter that Al-Qaeda is planning a terrorist attack in the U.S. and particularly targeting airlines and using what these experts are describing as invisible bombs based on the way they're able to shield them being picked up by TSA. Is there anything you can tell us about this, particularly we're now hearing from like the TSA Commission, or the Air Marshal Commission, some of these groups that represent these different forces are complaining that, hey, we got air marshals down the border checking for, lice and walking people to the bathroom. We need these guys back on airplanes. We're also hearing today, Congressman, that there's reports from NBC Channel 5 out of St. Louis that certain airports across the country now are not going to be making people put their shoes up on the belt and scanning them, like we had the shoe bomber. And that this may go across the country. And yet these experts are warning this is not the right time, because if these guys are developing explosive devices that are invisible, we need to keep up our security, not be letting down our security. Is there anything you're hearing that you can speak to that wouldn't be classified?
No, it doesn't bother me what they're doing with the shoes. I mean, there's a feeling that all the security, some of it may be going overboard, obviously very costly, very intrusive. I do think in this administration, we are going to be focusing more at potential terrorism just because of activity in the Middle East. And I think it's appropriate that we do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now, as this audience knows, I've been talking since we got back from the 4th of July break, since the 7th of July here. 2 years ago, the IRS's system was down to make our organization's payroll tax. And so we overnighted a check because 2 days it was down. After the second day, my CPA said, overnight that check so you're not getting penalized. So I did. And we got a letter saying, because you sent a check and didn't pay online, we're penalizing you $43,000. Now, it's not that we were late. They were penalizing us because we made the payment by check, not online. So we appealed it. They sent us an abatement letter and said, we're going to forgive that. 2 years later, they came back and said, we want, it was like $48,000, 47 something, almost 48,000. And we're like, wait a minute, you guys abated this 2 years ago. So it went through a review process and we got a second abatement. Then they came to us in 2025 and said, we want 49,000 something. We're like, you've abated this twice. And we went through appeal process. We got a really nice girl, to be honest with you, who was handling the appeal out of Milwaukee. She was an IRS agent. And she's like, this is crazy, Mr. Howse. You pay your taxes on time. There's no reason for this. The system was down for 2 days. You did what you could. You overnighted a check. She said, I can tell you the day we received your check. It's in the file, in your file. We know when we received your check. And yet you're being fined because you wrote a check. And you have your accountant, under the penalty of perjury, sign a statement saying that the system of the IRS was down for 2 days. Because I'd like to see if I could use all of this information to have this abated for a third and final time. And we got that to her. We worked with her for almost a month. Very professional, very much advocating, saying, this is crazy, really, to be honest. And she called last week, right before the 4th, and said, I hate to tell you this, but my supervisor refuses to abate this for a third and final time. And I don't understand why, because I made a great case for why you shouldn't be charged this for writing a check when our system was down, particularly when you're CPA signing under the threat of perjury, that this was the reality. She said, but I have to tell you, Mr. Howse, you're going to have to pay the over $49,000 if you want to keep appealing, but you should keep appealing. So she had to actually help me walk through the process to fill out the form and pay it because the system's so archaic, we had to start guessing at what the IRS was asking us for. We finally got it done. With that being said, I think you're on one of the committees that oversees the IRS. Are you not? Because we're hearing from taxpayers and CPAs now across the country talking about their cases that are just as ridiculous. And it seems as though from my CPA to other CPAs we're talking to, that this has really increased, this problem, in the last 12 months. Now, I have my accountant, my CPA, my tax attorney, I have a CPA and a tax attorney, they think my case is political because my CPA says, in my 25 plus years, I've never seen the IRS abate something and change their mind 2 years later, much less abate it twice. She said, something's really going on weird with your case, and I think it's related to who you are and what you do. But there seems to be that maybe this has gotten worse, according to reports for other people too, because of so many IRS agents being added, they're trying to justify their existence. Are you on a committee or subcommittee that oversees the IRS?
Well, perhaps we can look at something like that, or the finance committee can look at something like that. We love to do it because you'll recall the IRS years ago did have problems with being political when it came from, which people got charitable treatment, feeling there was some politics involved there. We recently had a lot of new IRS agents hired. I can tell you many years ago, I dealt with the IRS as a lawyer, and sometimes the lack of common sense of there was just, I'm sure over time it probably hasn't gotten better. Particularly the Biden administration seems to, the federal government, other agencies of the federal government, FBI, that sort of thing, for political purposes. So I think it's definitely something we should look at, particularly with such rare treatment. It just happens to fall on Brannon Howse.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for that. Do you think we'll ever go to a national sales tax, get rid of this progressive system and go to a national sales tax, consumption tax?
No, we don't want to do that. Europe is a much poorer country than this country, and the reason is they have a much bigger government. In Europe, they will tax you, first of all, on your income, and then on a sales tax, a value-added tax. So they hit you twice, on income and sales. Maybe we should have done differently when we began the income tax in around 2015, 2014, but the fact remains at the time we decided to tax income. If we tax income and sales, you're just going to grow government and we're wind up like it. So I'm against any sort of national sales tax. As a matter of fact, I'm worried when President Trump begins to say he's going to get a significant amount of money on the tariff, because tariffs is, of course, a form of sales tax, and that is one sure way to make our country poorer.
Wow. So you don't think there's a way to eliminate the progressive income tax and have a law written that says you can't have both? You can only have one?
No. I think if they ever go to a sales tax, what it will mean is they're adding a sales tax to the income tax.
Well, we can't have that, as you say.
We right now are borrowing 26% of our annual budget. I will tell you, if we put a national sales tax in there, they are not going to reduce the income tax. they will hit you twice.
Yeah, we can't have that. Can't have that. I agree. Well, let me try to end on some good news.
Okay.
Look at this one. The New York Times. The IRS says churches can endorse candidates from the pulpit. In a court filing, the tax agency said a decades-old ban on campaigning by tax-exempt groups should not apply to houses of worship speaking to their own members. All right. I agree with that. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion. What are your thoughts on this, number one? And number two, you and I both like to talk about, rightfully so, the fact that we don't have a lot of shepherds and pastors speaking up about the issues of the day. Do you think that they'll find the courage to do so now, or are they still going to be afraid that they might offend somebody and still not speak up?
Well, actually, in my experience, I think your liberal churches have never been afraid to speak up. You know, at least in my district, I can think of examples. I don't have to call it the denominations, in which I think the ministers are kind of an embarrassment. They're not afraid to speak up. It's the conservative churches in which the ministers are afraid to speak up. Now, you don't want to be overly politically lose the flock, and the most important message concerns belief in Jesus Christ. Nevertheless, I do think our government overall today does things that can only be described as anti-Christian, and I think it's important for the clergy to call that out. Right? When you have school districts that are preaching LGBT stuff in elementary school, early elementary school, who's supposed to call out on that? Earlier today, we talked about the huge marriage penalties in our welfare system. Who's supposed to step up and say, it's time for the government to stop penalizing married couples? I think that these are the type of issues that the clergy should point out. I think they've been very quiet on some of these issues, including LGBT issues. And it's important for clergy, first of all, to familiarize themselves with the topic. Just don't, shoot from the hip. But when you familiarize yourself with the topic, educate the public on what behavior God expects from us.
Absolutely. So pastors need to speak up, and now they can't use the Johnson Amendment as the excuse. All right, folks, you need to follow my friend, Congressman Glenn Grothman on X, at Representative Grothman, at Rep Grothman, right there, 6th District of Wisconsin, a friend of the broadcast, spoke at our Worldview rally in Waukesha, Wisconsin in April. He's a favorite of our program, always makes himself available, and we love having him on the broadcast. So, as always, Congressman, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Brannon. Look to be back on the show in the near future again.
You can count on it. Thank you, sir. Congressman Glenn Grothman checking in, folks. Check out his website, at Representative Grothman. And if you are one of his supporters in his district, and you see him, tell him, hey, we heard you on Brannon House Live. We love it when he hears that, right? Because we get great reports back from him on that. So let him know you appreciate him and encourage him. It's not an easy job. It's not, right? And we appreciate the good ones. You got to keep the good ones encouraged, folks. And this is a good one. We like Congressman Glenn Grothman. All right, before we go, folks, take a look at this. I'm thankful for this. They're praying today in the cabinet room. Thank you, President Trump. We don't have to agree on everything for us to appreciate the good things that President Trump is doing. There are many of them, and this is one of them. I love seeing our nation's leaders with their head bowed, praying, beseeching the Lord. That does me good. And that gentleman that's praying always prays every time I've heard him, a very biblical prayer. So pray for our elected leaders. Again, we don't always agree with everything that the administration's doing. They're doing a lot of things right, and they need wisdom, discernment. None of us are perfect. I'm not perfect. God's put them where they are. Let's pray for them. And by the way, pray for us. Will you do something else? Support us. WorldviewFoundation.com. We need your support now, please. WorldviewFoundation.com. So next time in Brannon House, may God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon Howse.
And welcome. Glad you're with us on this July 8th, 2025.